So mental stimulation, Maggie, what do you consider mental stimulation for dogs?
Anything that they have to use some of their senses. They have to think about what they're doing. Simple tricks are good. Sit down, hand targeting, things. It depends on what's going on with your dog.
Mm-hmm.
Is your dog confined in the house because of the weather?
Right.
Or so in that case, you need to think about things that your dog can do in your house. I really like to do like a go find it with my dogs, where I'll hide one of the toys and send them to find it.
Okay.
Because it stimulates their mind and then also keeps them active, keeps them moving around.
Burn off some energy too.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. I also I do a version of the shell game where I'll have several cups and I'll put a treat under one cup and ask the dog to find it. And I make it really simple. The dog really can't lose in this game, but it's about them using their mind and using their senses because they're so scent oriented.
So it's like Las Vegas for dogs.
Yes, and if you think about it, dogs, I think that's like 75% of their fun outside is being able to sniff things, sniff
Right.
for bunnies, sniff for critters, just smell what's going around. And in the house, we take that away from them. So I really like the scent kind of things.
Right. When we think about mental stimulation, it could be for, like you said, dogs who can't go outside. Too cold, too hot, hasn't stopped raining for a week.
Right,
You know what that's
right,
like
yeah.
here in Michigan. So it's just the restriction, can't go out for whatever reason and go for a walk or play in the yard or whatever your dog does for exercise. It's also dogs who are maybe recovering from an injury or surgery.
Right.
Pretty common would be a spay or neuter, right? 2 weeks of crate time. How are you going to keep that puppy or dog, mentally stimulated and burn off a little bit of energy when they can't physically go and do things?
Exactly.
So what we know about using things that help them with mental stimulation is it does help your dog feel content. 15, 20 minutes of playing with a food dispensing toy is similar to taking them on a nice walk. They burn off some energy.
And don't you agree that it also, it's mental energy, but it's equally as tiring?
Absolutely.
They have a little training session with them and they zonk out. They're exhausted.
Many dogs are, I always refer to as underemployed. We're not giving them any outlets besides just a walk or playing in the yard. We think that's enough, and then they become destructive in the home, or they're always getting into mischief. When people share with me, oh, my dog is always getting into trouble, this, that, or the other thing, and I ask, well, what activities do you give them that, one, they can do independently, that you don't have to be sitting there throwing a ball for an hour.
Right.
What are you giving them to do? And most of the time it's, well, probably not enough. So we want to just quickly go over just some ideas, some things you can think about, whether your dog is recovering from a surgery, or you just cannot take them out. Maybe you broke your foot.
Exactly.
And you can't
It's
walk
happened
your
to
dog
me, yep.
for 6
Mhm,
weeks.
mhm.
I've recovered from surgeries where I couldn't walk my dogs for 2 months at a time, and I had to come up with all kinds of creative ways to exercise them. So first we'll start with food dispensing toys. So food dispensing toys, I had a whole bunch of them here, but sometimes I think people don't realize that you can actually feed your dog meals out of a food dispensing toy. This isn't just playtime. For example, if I was using this one here, it's called a kibble nibble. It unscrews, it has holes on both ends, and as the dog rolls it around on the floor, it shoots their dried kibble out both ends. I put their breakfast, lunch, or dinner in here. It takes a half hour to get your food versus 1 minute out of a bowl. So if you're going to use a food dispensing toy, think about using it at a mealtime. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea. Instead of them lapping up their food in 5 minutes, it gives them at least half an hour of not only seeking out their food, but also, again, burning off some energy by following the ball around.
Yeah, and working for it. Dogs like to work. We tend to forget that. We have these working animals, and we kind of take their jobs away, and then we don't know why they're bored.
Right.
Another way I feed my dogs occasionally is with Kongs, and you can do any number of things. You can make this just a fun toy. You could put pumpkin or applesauce or something, I try to use low fat, healthier things because this is a lot of food in here. I also take their dry kibble, put it in a big bowl, put some warm water, let it sit for a while until the food is really mushy. Then I take the food, put it in the Kong, pack it in, and then freeze it overnight.
I do that too, yes.
So I can feed them a meal out of a frozen Kong. This is a good 30, 45 minutes of work to get a meal, so they're not overeating. They're eating what they were going to eat anyway. But they're
burning more calories.
Yeah, they're having a lot more fun, and then they're going to eat out of this Kong, and they're going to want to go lay down.
Yeah.
They're not going to eat it in 1 minute and then look at me and say, I'm bored, now what?
Right.
So creative ways to use Kongs, all these different food dispensing toys. You know, Maggie, what kind of stuff with your pups do you use?
Well, I have some toys similar to this, and they love it. You just pop some treats under here, and they take a while to...
Yeah. So these are food puzzles,
Yeah.
right? It's like this one,
They
this
have
is
to
called
sniff it out.
the tornado, where you have all these different levels of spinning plastic, and you put treats into all these compartments, and then the dog has to really open this whole thing up and spin it around to keep getting the food out. And the same with this, there's food under every single one of these, and they have to use their paws and their nose to get the food out.
There's also snuffle mats.
Yeah, snuffle mat's good. As long as your dog doesn't eat fleas.
Right, right.
My experience is even a dog who is prone to ripping and tearing, they won't do that until all the food is gone.
Right.
You just have to supervise.
Right.
You have to put the food in the mat. They hunt and find it. As soon as the food is gone, you absolutely have to take the mat away.
Yes.
Or they're probably going to just move on to stage 2.
I know my dogs would.
Just
Yeah, right.
destroy the mat now. Because mom really needs to buy me a new one.
Mm-hmm.
But what age would you start introducing these? Like puppy?
Oh, absolutely, puppy.
So like when they come home?
Right away.
Okay.
I would start really early, especially with the Kong. It's just a good way to keep them occupied.
Right.
Even if you don't have restrictions of them being in the house, dogs need that mental stimulation. If you think about a puppy coming home from being with a litter, they probably had a lot of interaction with their buddies, and all of a sudden it's just them in their crate, and they need something to keep them occupied.
I mean, I can't be everything to them.
Right.
Even if I think I can.
Right.
They get sick of me after a while. They're like, is there anything else you got, Michelle?
And we
besides
have to
you?"
remember that that's what dogs are about. They're about sniffing, they're about eating things, they're about searching things out.
Dissecting
Yes.
stuff, ripping and tearing.
Mm-hmm.
And we take all of those away. We end up with a really frustrated dog who
Right.
becomes the destructive dog.
Mhm.
So if we're going to use, food dispensing things, we're going to do a lot of redirection, make them work for stuff. What about like doing some canine nose work?
Yes, that's great. Even if your dog hasn't been trained in nose work, every dog knows what a cookie smells like.
They have
So,
nose.
right.
And it
So
works.
yeah, you can take a cardboard box and put a treat under it. Tell them go find it.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, I usually make the game kind of easy.
Right.
The box is right here, and there's treats leading up to the box, and then they quickly figure out there's a treat under the box. But as they get good at it, you can make it more complicated so that they have to even go in the other room or
Really
tip something
search
over
for
a little harder. Yeah, so they're working a little harder, but they love that.
Right. So it is. It can be a lot of fun for them. What about, I know this is something you enjoy, what about teaching your dog some tricks?
Oh, that's the best. That's the best because depending on your dog's limitations, if your dog has some physical limitations and they can't move around a whole lot, there are still tricks that you can teach them. You can teach them, so here's the tap light. You can teach them just, oh, no light.
It doesn't light up anymore. It's just a tap, broken light.
It's a tap light. So you can just teach them to smack something, to touch something. You can teach them to target your hand. That's something I routinely teach dogs anyway. And then you can just play around with where's my hand, touch my hand.
What about like holding stuff?
Holding stuff is great. Yes, that's good too. That
It could be stationary, or
Yeah.
you could teach a go get it.
Right.
So you could take a simple hold and turn it into all kind.
Absolutely.
Go get me a beverage, please.
Oh, yeah.
We taught service dogs that, but I don't want to teach that at my house. I don't want them in the refrigerator. But so we have tricks. We could play fun games with them. You know, you can do basic training in your home, working on just basic skills, work on some advanced skills. Training is always a good option.
Right. You can't really overtrain a dog from my point of view.
Right.
So you can train even things like come when called in the house, train healing in the house. When I was showing in obedience, I did a lot of healing in the house because it was a really good way to get your dog next to you because you're walking down the hallway.
Right. Teach them to go backwards. Really work on stay. Teach them to get on and off the furniture on cue. There was one time it was 50 below wind chill here for a very long time. And I took that time to work with my dogs getting in and out of the car. We have a attached garage, so it was all closed in. And I practiced, I'd get them in the car, and then I'd leave all the car doors open with the garage door shut, and they practiced stay, and then they wouldn't get out of the car until I released them. So, did a lot of that stuff. But it's hard if you find yourself confined to your home because of weather or injury on your part or the dog's part. It can get frustrating pretty quickly.
Right.
But you can even train from your couch.
Absolutely.
I've done videos where I've used the flirt pole. I've introduced the flirt pole. I train laying on my couch quite often or from my chair. You don't have to be in a formal setting. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out thing. Train for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is better than not doing anything at all. But we very much underestimate our dog's need to use their brain from when they're a puppy until they're into their golden years. We also sometimes don't think about our older dogs needing to keep the brain going. They want
because they're not pestering us so much.
Right.
They just
seem content to lay on that bed for
leave well enough alone.
14 hours a day. But mental stimulation is a very big part, a very big need for all of our dogs. And there's so many creative ways between food dispensing toys and teaching new tricks and teaching nose work and having fun with them. And it doesn't have to consume your whole day. You don't have to spend your whole day entertaining your dog. But it can make living with them so much more enjoyable because they're not constantly pestering you or getting into trouble.
I think it can go even as far as indoor agility. Got a hula hoop? Teach your dog to walk through the hoop. It doesn't have to be up 6 feet high. You just have them walk through the hoop. They love to do that. Play the 101 things to do with a box. Put a box out in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
See what your dog does with it. They put their head in it, you click. They paw it, you click. Just let them use their minds. They love to do that.
Yeah. It's just such an important part of living with
Yeah.
them. So the next time you find yourself thinking that your dog's a hooligan or troublemaker, ask yourself, what's the last thing I did to help my dog actually use their brain and have some outlet for all their dogginess? And you'll probably have your answer why they're acting up.
Right.
So have some fun and teach your dog some new tricks.
And post it on the site.
Absolutely.